Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Ghosts and Spirits of the Week video. So this one actually comes not from a suggestion, but from a random page within the cryptids.wiki.com website. So it was quite strange and quite interesting to hit that random page link, and then it came up with this. And then also due to the fact that I saw a movie just recently this year related to this spirit as well. So quite a set of interesting coincidences, and so I just had to talk about it here. An official name at least has this. It's called the Kodama, and it is a spirit that's located in some very particular trees within parts of Japan, or in some cases parts of the world. So yet again, another interesting, fascinating spirit that seems to be tied to trees. I remember talking about some of those in the past as well, and if I can find those links again, I'll post them in the section below, so be on the lookout for those too. So let's go ahead, let's talk about all the information tied to this spirit in the trees. So what is this Kodama? Well, it's a spirit from Japanese folklore that, if you believe it, it turns out that certain trees, very particular trees, seem to have it housed within them. So much so that even far back into the 13th century, that's when they were being talked about within certain manuals and other written illustrations. And the whole idea is this. Essentially, it's a tree, but it's a living tree, only in the sense that it houses some form of spirit within it. You can't really see those spirits per se. They just seem to come out every now and then. Very, very rare, in other words, when you come to seeing them. But you do know when you're around a Kodama, or at least a tree that houses a Kodama, because if you're in the forest and let's say you're talking to someone and you naturally hear an echo from your own voice, well, if all of a sudden you're around an area where that echo seems to take longer to return, or at least it sounds like the echo stretches out much further than it should, then that's when you know that you are in the presence of a Kodama. And when that happens, then that's when you are almost like in what's considered a holy site of sorts. You definitely have to make sure that you treat these trees with respect, because again, they seem to have a spirit within them. Nothing in terms of the spirit being bad, nothing in terms of it being good either. It just seems to just be housed within these trees. So the whole idea is you're supposed to treat them again almost reverently. Now, on the very rare occasions that you do see the spirit from these trees, these Kodamas, they apparently look like the form of a very faint orb of light. So just like you would expect, almost like in Ghost Adventures, like they always have those orbs that come out of certain places. It seems like that's what you would see also here. And then on another interesting aspect, they take on a humanoid form, but in this case a little teeny tiny humanoid creature. And in some places, if you hear them, that's not necessarily a good thing, because then when you hear them speak, that apparently notes that it's because someone has died, and so the spirit, this Kodama, is reacting to it by making its very rare voice heard, indicating again that there's a death of a person, someone nearby. Also, you can tell when a Kodama is nearby, because imagine that if, let's say, you have your average Japanese forest and you have some people out there cutting down trees in order to provide lumber or to provide firewood, whatever is the case. There they are cutting into one tree, and all of a sudden it starts bleeding. When that happens, they immediately stop because they realize, oh my goodness, they're cutting into a Kodama. And so to make absolutely certain that nothing else is done to this tree, they're usually marked with some kind of rope or some kind of sign right in front of the tree itself. So that way it'll ensure that there's no one else that accidentally does it. Now you can still actually cut down the tree. Like there's nothing that's going to be preventing it per se. Like you're not going to have this Kodama spirit suddenly come out and do something physical to prevent it. But when you do that, essentially you're killing the Kodama, because you're killing its very essence. It's a spirit that's tied to the tree, and the tree is tied to the spirit. So if you kill this tree, then you actually kill the Kodama as well. So again, very very important tree located within certain parts of, I guess, the Japanese forest, although there's no indication that it's necessarily limited to other parts of the world itself. Now, as far as why I also picked this, again, has to do with the movie I saw a little bit earlier this year. Princess Mononoke played nearby one of the Austin theaters. I love it when Fathom Events, which is a growing region, or I guess a growing department within Regal Cinemas, they show a lot of these retro movies, movies of the past that people can see for the first time in theaters. Like in my case, I never saw it when it originally came out, but it was a great opportunity to see it then. So Princess Mononoke came out, and it was a packed house, absolutely packed. I was surprised because normally these Fathom Event special screenings, I'll be lucky to get like 10 people within the theater, but no, in this case it was packed, almost full. And then I was quite surprised when the fan favorite, and I've seen them before, but I could never quite picture where they were from, but they came out in this movie. Those small little white humanoids, the ones that do the little rotating spasms with their heads, those little tick-tocking noise that they do, almost like a clock that's being wound up, and then they just jitter and then they stand still. Those little things, these bobbleheads, came out within the film, and I can see why they were an immediate fan favorite after all these years, because here you had a situation where these creatures didn't really talk, didn't really do much in terms of, let's say, having an important role, like a main character within the film. They could be relegated to the closest thing involving a cameo. But once they came on, I mean, they were instantly memorable. They were just mimicking certain characters, the way they acted, the way they moved in a very, very cute fashion. And then there was that prominent scene where when the forest was being destroyed, then those things were falling, quite sadly in this case, from the trees. And then of course the movie ends with a glimmer of hope, where you would think that these things were just ultimately destroyed, but no, there they are, one of these things coming out into the forest and then rattling its head in its trademark fashion, indicating again that they will return. And that, of course, I was surprised that the movie had this light applause once it finished, because again, people held these creatures with such high regard that I can see again why they are a fan favorite. But if you ever wanted to know what they're modeled after, essentially they are Kodamas. That's the spirits within the trees. So now it makes total sense, because yes, there are prominent scenes within the film where you see them come out of the trees, almost like fade out or fade in from the trees. And so now it's quite interesting to have this name officially tied to it. But that's it. That's all the information associated with the Kodama. And again, another interesting ghost in this case, or spirit of the week. If anyone has any more info, anybody from the area there in Japan, anybody that has happened to go into those forests, maybe even come across one that's marked, just the idea of seeing it alive in person, one of these trees with those ropes around it, again indicating that you are in the presence of a revered tree. It would be so fascinating to see it. I mean, I would love to be able to touch it, just take pictures of it, and think to myself, is there really a spirit within it? And then who knows, maybe you might be lucky and you'll get to see an orb, or in this case a tiny little humanoid. But if anyone has already, please post those comments below. That'd be really, really great to hear. So alright everybody, thanks again as always. Take care.